The stage lights of Britain's Got Talent shimmered like a sea of stars as the audience buzzed with anticipation. Cameras glided silently across the grand theater, capturing nervous smiles, whispered prayers, and the unmistakable tension that always filled the room moments before an audition. Backstage, a small figure stood beside a man with rough, calloused hands, hands shaped by years of hard labor, sacrifice, and love. They were father and son, and in just a few moments, their lives were about to change forever. The boy was only 12 years old. His name was Miguel. His uniform hung slightly loose on his thin frame, and his shoes were carefully polished, though clearly worn from years of use. He clutched the microphone with both hands, his fingers trembling despite his best effort to appear calm. Beside him stood his father, Roberto, a quiet man in his early 40s whose face bore the lines of sun and struggle. He worked as a carpenter, just as his father had before him. Long days, aching muscles, and modest pay were all he had ever known, but also honesty, dignity, and an unbreakable devotion to his family. When the stage manager gave them the signal, Roberto bent down and whispered something into Miguel's ear. The boy nodded. Whatever fear he felt, he swallowed it whole. Together, they walked out onto the iconic BGT stage. The applause was polite but curious. Two people instead of one always sparked questions. Simon Cowell leaned forward slightly, his eyes sharp and analytical. Amanda Holden smiled warmly, intrigued. Alicia Dixon tilted her head, already sensing there was more to this pair than met the eye. Bruno Tonioli clasped his hands together, excited by the unexpected. "Hello," Amanda said gently. "Welcome to Britain's Got Talent. Can you tell us your names?" Miguel stepped closer to the microphone. His voice was soft but clear. "My name is Miguel Santos. I'm 12 years old, and this is my father, Roberto." "And where are you from, Miguel?" Alicia asked. "We are from the Philippines," he replied. "We came here because my dream is to sing. And my father believes in me." The audience murmured warmly at that. Simon raised an eyebrow. "So what brings both of you on stage today?" he asked, his tone neutral but attentive. Miguel hesitated for a second, then looked up at his father. Roberto placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We are here together," Miguel said, "because my father is the reason I can sing. He worked very hard so I could follow my dream. And today I want to sing for him." Something shifted in the room. The audience quieted. Simon leaned back slightly, his expression unreadable. "What will you be singing?" Bruno asked. Miguel took a deep breath. "An original song. It's about family and hope." Simon's eyebrow lifted again. Original songs always came with risk. "All right," Simon said. "Whenever you're ready." The lights dimmed. A single spotlight fell on Miguel and Roberto. The opening notes began. Simple, soft, played on a piano that echoed gently through the hall. Miguel closed his eyes. The first line he sang was quiet, almost fragile. His voice was not loud, but it carried something far more powerful, truth. He sang about a small house with a leaking roof, about nights when the electricity went out, about watching his father come home exhausted yet smiling. The audience leaned in, drawn by the sincerity in every word. As the song built, Miguel's voice grew stronger. Emotion trembled through his notes, not from fear but from memory. He sang about his father's hands, hands that built tables, doors, and dreams. Hands that held him when he cried. Hands that never let go, even when life was hard. Roberto stood beside him, eyes fixed on his son. Tears welled but did not fall. This was Miguel's moment. Then something unexpected happened. Halfway through the song, the music softened, and Miguel turned toward his father. He reached out, gently pulling Roberto closer to the microphone. The audience gasped. "My father will sing with me," Miguel said quietly. Roberto froze. This had not been planned, not fully. He shook his head slightly, panic flashing across his face. He was not a performer. He was a carpenter, a man used to the background, not the spotlight. But Miguel looked at him with unwavering trust. Roberto swallowed hard. The music resumed, and when he sang, his voice was rough, untrained, but filled with raw emotion. He sang only a few lines, but every word carried the weight of a lifetime. He sang about wanting more for his son than he ever had. About choosing love over comfort. About believing in dreams even when they felt impossible. The audience was no longer just watching. They were feeling. Amanda's hand flew to her mouth. Alicia wiped at her eyes. Bruno's face softened completely. Even Simon, famed for his stoicism, sat unusually still, his gaze locked on the stage. When Miguel's voice returned, soaring higher than before, it felt like a release. The boy was no longer just singing for his father. He was singing for every child with a dream and every parent who sacrificed in silence. As the final note rang out, the theater erupted. The audience rose to their feet in a standing ovation. Applause thundered through the hall, mixed with cheers and sobs. Miguel stood frozen, overwhelmed. Roberto pulled him into a tight embrace, tears finally spilling freely. Simon Cowell stood up. That alone sent shockwaves through the crowd. The applause slowly faded as the judges prepared to speak. Amanda was the first. Miguel, Roberto, that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed on this stage. Not just heard, but witnessed. Your bond, your story, it's unforgettable. Alicia nodded, her voice trembling. Miguel, you have a voice that comes straight from your heart. And Roberto, your courage to stand there for your son, that is real talent. Bruno leaned forward enthusiastically. That was not a performance. That was life. That was love, and it was magnificent. All eyes turned to Simon. He paused for a long moment, looking down, then back up at Miguel. I've seen thousands of auditions, he said slowly. And I can usually tell within seconds what's going to happen. Today, I was wrong. The audience leaned in. Miguel, Simon continued, your voice is special. But what shocked me wasn't just how you sang, it was why you sang. You reminded everyone in this room what this show is really about. Miguel's eyes widened. Roberto squeezed his hand. Simon took a breath. This is exactly the kind of moment that deserves something more. Amanda's eyes widened. Alicia covered her mouth again. Simon turned slightly and reached out. The golden buzzer echoed like thunder. Golden confetti exploded from above, raining down over the stage. The audience screamed. Miguel gasped, his hands flying to his mouth as tears streamed down his face. Roberto dropped to his knees, overwhelmed, holding his son as gold shimmered around them. Miguel laughed and cried at the same time. Papa, he shouted over the noise. Roberto could barely speak. I am so proud of you, he whispered. The judges rushed to the stage, embracing them. Simon stood back for a moment, watching the father and son wrapped in each other's arms, bathed in gold. In that moment, the world saw more than a talent show audition. They saw a story of sacrifice, of family, of dreams carried across oceans and generations. A 12-year-old boy and his father had walked onto a stage, and walked straight into history. And long after the confetti settled, one thing was certain. Nothing would ever be the same again.